The air smelled metallic and dry, a tang that made the inside of my mask itch. I knelt over the broken radio, its exposed wiring a chaotic nest of copper threads, some singed, others bare. The settlement on Lyra, 9 had been abandoned for decades, left to drift among the red dust storms that swept across the barren plains. I wasn't supposed to be here, not alone. But humans had a habit of showing up where no one else would. Curiosity, stubbornness, survival instinct, call it what you want. The radio crackled, faint static whispering through the speakers. I adjusted the tuning dial, my gloved fingers careful not to tear the delicate wires. For weeks, I'd scavenged these ruins, piecing together scraps of old Earth technology with whatever I could find. The reward wasn't wealth, it was communication, a link to the outside, a chance that someone, somewhere, might hear me. "Come on," I muttered, my voice echoing slightly in the empty hall of what used to be the settlement's command center. The radio flickered. Sparks danced across its circuitry, and I froze, holding my breath. Then, a voice cut through the static, soft but distinctly alien, layered with tones I hadn't expected. "Is anyone there?" I jerked back, heart hammering. The voice wasn't mechanical. It wasn't pre-recorded. It was alive, curious, intelligent. My pulse spiked, but I didn't panic. I had been trained for first-contact scenarios, at least the theoretical ones, and this was exactly what they had warned us about. Unexpected, uncontrolled, and potentially dangerous. Yes, I'm here," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to steady it. Who is this?" There was a pause, long enough to make me question whether I had imagined the voice. Then it spoke again, clearer this time. "I am Sereth. I am searching." The name felt foreign, each syllable resonating with a subtle musicality, like a chord strummed in a language my mind could almost understand but never fully grasp. I'm human. I found this radio," I said, holding it up so it caught the dim light. "I'm trying to fix it. You can hear me?" "Yes," she said, and there was a note of relief in her tone. "I am far from my ship. Your signals, they reached me. I need help." That was all the invitation I needed. Humans were known for their improvisation, their ability to adapt in ways other species often found baffling. I had a hunch that this was one of those moments that would define everything. I spent the next hour meticulously reconnecting wires, using strips of my emergency supply to bridge gaps. The radio hummed, and a low, steady tone filled the room, a heartbeat, in a way, syncing with mine. "Better," I said, almost to myself, but Sereth responded immediately. "Better," she confirmed. "I can sense your presence. I am near, but not close. The storm on Lyra, 9, it moves fast. I must find shelter." I scanned the room. The old command center had collapsed ceilings and walls breached by the wind. The storm outside was imminent. "I have a shelter," I said. "Follow the signal. I'll guide you." I didn't know how far she was, or if she could navigate the planet like a human could, but there was a confidence in her voice that suggested she had survived worse. We communicated through the radio, me guiding her describing landmarks I couldn't see, but somehow recognized. It was a slow process, each exchange careful, deliberate, because one mistake could mean being lost, or worse. Hours passed. The storm outside began its growl, the winds rattling the fragile metal and glass of the building. Then, in the midst of the chaos, I saw her. She emerged from the red haze, taller than any human, her skin a pale iridescent gray that shimmered in the low light. Her eyes, black and reflective, seemed to pierce straight through the dust and the darkness, focusing on me. Her limbs were elegant, almost too long, but she moved with a grace that defied the raging storm. "Human," she said, stepping closer. I did not expect to see you so soon. I didn't expect you to come, I admitted, not bothering to hide the awe in my voice. You're real. I am real, she replied, tilting her head as if studying me, weighing the truth of my words. And you fixed the radio. That was clever. Clever. I felt a rush of pride. Humans were, perhaps, not the strongest species in the galaxy, not the fastest, not the most technologically advanced, but clever that we could be in ways that often surprised others. We retreated into the shelter I had prepared, a reinforced storage module half buried in the dust. The radio lay between us, humming softly, a bridge between worlds. I need information, she said, finally. Her voice had a curious cadence, like multiple notes vibrating simultaneously. There are forces here. Forces that follow me. I nodded. We're safe here for now. Tell me everything. And she did. She spoke of her ship, stranded after an encounter with a rogue mining fleet that had attacked her convoy. Her people, she explained, were explorers, traders, guardians of certain sectors, but they rarely interacted with humans. Lyra, 9 was supposed to be empty, abandoned. She hadn't expected to find life here, especially not human life. I listened, asking questions where I needed clarification, learning about her culture, her physiology, her ship's technology, the quantum communication she normally used that the storm had blocked. Every word confirmed a truth I had long suspected. Humans had a knack for survival and ingenuity that made us unpredictable allies. Night fell. The storm raged. Yet, within the module, there was a sense of fragile calm. We shared rations I had brought from my settlement supplies, and she shared a liquid from a container I couldn't identify. Sweet, tangy, nourishing. I watched her hands, long and delicate, manipulate objects with precision I could hardly match. Then, without warning, she reached over and touched my hand. The gesture was simple, but it carried weight. A connection. A recognition of effort, of ingenuity, of the sheer audacity that had brought me here, repairing an ancient human radio to save an alien life. Your kind is remarkable, she said softly. Resourceful. Fearless. You adapt where others fail. I laughed, a little bitterly, a little proudly. We have to if we want to survive. The following days were a blur. The storm did not abate. We spent the time fortifying the shelter, scavenging what I could from the ruins. I repaired more communication devices at her instruction, rigged power conduits, even constructed a makeshift antenna that stretched into the storm's heart. All the while, Sareth shared knowledge I would later realize could revolutionize human engineering if ever we understood it fully. She was cautious, but curious, and I realized, slowly, that this was no accident. My presence, my determination, had drawn her to me as much as her plight had drawn me to her. Then the danger arrived. I first heard it as a shadow in the storm, movements too synchronized to be natural. I peered through a break in the module wall and saw them. Drones, sleek, angular, their metallic surfaces reflecting the storm's red hue. Sareth tensed. They follow me, she whispered, and for the first time, fear flickered in her voice. If they find you, it will be dangerous. I didn't hesitate. Humans rarely did. We stop them, I said, more to myself than to her. We make sure they don't. Using the knowledge Sareth had imparted, I rigged traps and countermeasures, turning the module into a gauntlet for any intruders. When the drones finally arrived, they were met with EMP pulses, hidden tripwires, and magnetic snares. Sareth moved alongside me, her abilities complementing my own. Together, we were a force neither expected. By the time the storm passed, we had neutralized the threat. Exhausted, We collapsed inside the module. For the first time, Sareth smiled, a brief, radiant thing that lit her alien features. "You are extraordinary human," she said. "I thought I was the one who needed saving. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps we save each other." I felt the weight of her words. Humans had survived countless odds, faced dangers that would have obliterated other species. And here I was, a single human on a barren planet, having repaired a simple radio, bridging worlds, and finding an ally who might have changed the course of her own species' fate. The next morning, the skies cleared. Sareth's ship, camouflaged against the horizon, glimmered in the rising sun. She turned to me, her expression unreadable for a moment, then resolute. "You have done more than repair a radio," she said. "You have repaired a connection. Between species. Between possibilities. I will not forget this, human. You are remarkable." I saluted her, a gesture she mimicked awkwardly, but sincerely. Then, with a flash of iridescent light, she was gone, leaving only the hum of the repaired radio and the whisper of the wind across Lyra 9. I stood alone for a long time, staring at the horizon where the storm had ended. My heart was still racing, but it wasn't fear. It was pride. Humans were resilient, unpredictable, and clever, and sometimes, just sometimes, that was enough to bridge the impossible. I gathered my tools, pocketed the remains of the supplies, and stepped out into the clearing dust. Somewhere out there, Sareth would tell her people of the human who had repaired a radio, the human who had guided her through the storm. And that story, my story, would travel farther than any one human could ever go. Because humans survived. Humans adapted. Humans reached where others would not. And in that truth, I found something almost infinite. I switched the radio back on, listening to the static for a moment, half expecting her voice to return. Even if it never did, the connection we had made would linger. Humans always left a mark, sometimes small, sometimes monumental, but always undeniable. The red winds of Lyra 9 blew through my hair as I walked toward the horizon. And for the first time in a long while, I felt that humans, no matter how far from home, were exactly where they were meant to be. The red winds of Lyra 9 finally began to settle, leaving the barren landscape eerily quiet. I stood on the edge of the plateau, the repaired radio humming softly at my side, a relic of human persistence and ingenuity. In the distance, a glimmer of light marked where Sareth's ship had vanished beyond the horizon. I felt a strange calm, a sense that the impossible had been accomplished. One human, just me, had made a difference. One human had reached across the void, bridged worlds, and survived when others might have failed. That was who we were, resilient, clever, relentless. For a long moment, I closed my eyes, letting the wind wash over me. Somewhere out there, Sareth would speak of the human who fixed a radio in a dead settlement, the human who guided her through the storm. And that story, my story, would travel farther than any single human ever could. I switched the radio back on, half expecting her voice to return, half wishing it would. Even if it didn't, I knew the connection we had forged would endure, a testament to human ingenuity and courage. I turned, walking back toward the settlement ruins. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead, filled with possibility and danger alike. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something deeper than survival. I felt purpose. Humans didn't just endure. We adapted. We reached. We changed worlds. And in that truth, in the quiet hum of a repaired radio and the fading echo of an alien voice, I realized something irrefutable. Humanity was unstoppable. The storm was over. But we, the humans, were just beginning.